today we're gonna go through some of those most common DSS recipes. We're gonna talk a little bit about Luminate and what that transition is gonna look like for a lot of suppliers. But yeah, we are Peter Spalding and Ali Trong. If you've been here before, you've probably seen one or both of us on a webinar. Our whole thing is to do webinars and to do articles and ebooks and content on the most difficult stuff with being a supplier in a major retailer. So that's what we do. If there's something that you would like us to cover, if you've been on these before and you would like to see a version of this for a different retail link app or something like that, please let us know. That's what we're here to do. But today we're going to be covering a little bit about what that transition is going to look like, what DSS going away will mean for regular suppliers or people who are pulling reports from DSS pretty regularly. And then we'll get into the scheduled programming a little bit. If people want to talk a little bit more about Luminate, we're going to have a lot more Luminate content in the future. But if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A and we'll get to them. We'd love to talk about that today and kind of, just let that conversation percolate a little bit in the next few months before DSS is replaced by Luminate. But then we'll get into a little bit of the regular programming with DSS, including pulling some basic reports in there before going through a product preview of Supply Pike for those who would like to stick around for that. All right, I already mentioned the Q&A tab. This is kind of standard fare for our webinars. All the communication happens between the chat and the Q&A. The chat is just public facing stuff that you would like to kind of like share with everyone else. Maybe if you have a general kind of broad question about what other people are thinking about Luminate so far, if anyone's kind of been there or pulled any reports from Luminate Basic, if anyone has Luminate Charter and recommends it or doesn't, whatever that is. That's what the chat is for. Q&As for more formal questions about maybe Luminate or DSS or other retail link apps that you have for us. If you put those in the Q&A tab, that'll help us kind of keep things organized that way. And then also a question that we get a lot of the time is, will we be getting a copy of the slide deck? You will. We'll be sending it out in about 3 to 4 business days. We also upload all of our webinars to YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed to the Supply Pike YouTube channel, I highly recommend it just to kind of keep a finger on the pulse of what we're covering. We'd like to think that the biggest news in the Walmart supplier world we'll be covering pretty regularly, as well as some of the just evergreen topics that are really important to supplier success at Walmart. So I'd highly recommend that too. And, if you're new, if you've never been here before, who is Supply Pike? Basically, Supply Pike's goal is reducing revenue loss for retail suppliers by saving time and auto disputing AP deductions and some compliance things like some compliance fines too, which we take all of that and we summarize that as revenue loss. So our software is designed to help people avoid revenue loss. And if you want to stick around to the end, you can see a little bit of kind of how that happens. These are some of our proud partners. And we're in just about every product category that you can be in Walmart and in other major retailers. And we're looking to expand those retailers in 2024 in some exciting new ways. So if you're curious about that, you could ask us a question about that too. But that's that. Today, we won't be talking very much about the product. We'll just be kind of covering retailing stuff. So with that, Ali,
thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. All right, like Peter said, if you've been to this particular webinar before, you'll kind of notice it's a mix of new content and old content because DSS is being decommissioned in March. So this webinar, we've usually spent an hour just talking about DSS and some of the history behind it. It's helpful context as well as building reports. Today, we're going to have a little bit of both. We're going to talk a little bit about DSS and we're going to talk a little bit about Luminate. The reason being is we've talked to a lot of suppliers like you, and we understand that just because Luminate is out and you may have the basic version, which is free at this time, or you may have Charter, which is the paid version. A lot of suppliers are not done using DSS. Actually, we've talked to suppliers who are still training on DSS. So we want to give a helpful mix for both, and we can kind of talk about the strategies of when to switch over, and we can focus more on Luminate if you guys would like, as well as DSS. But because both tools still exist, we're going to cover both. So if you are a new supplier and you're just not informed on what DSS is, it stands for Decision Support System, and it's a reporting application. So it's within Retail Link, and it helps users, suppliers, as well as on the Walmart side. So replenishment managers, buyers, the merchant team, create custom databases and queries so you can export your Walmart data and then use that for the different applications that you would in your business. And again, this is living inside of DSS. We'll kind of talk about the differences and similarities of DSS to Luminate, but Luminate is its own portal and is not living within Retail Link at this time. So there is a tip: if you do want to use DSS today, you can go ahead and click on apps and then search for decision support, and then you can star that. And that works for any of your Retail Link apps that are within the Retail Link portal. You can save those and star them. But what I'll say here is I know that there are some suppliers that are still using DSS. The recommendation that we've had from suppliers who we consider best in class, as well as the teams that work with those suppliers, is try to get your team using both now. And that is because Luminate, we'll kind of get into it, is still built with some of the same phrases or templates that you can use in DSS. But if you have been using DSS for 20 years and you're not excited about the change, I would use them while you still have both of them available. And I will preface this: DSS is not new, so we're pretty familiar with that, as are most suppliers we work with. With Luminate, though, I would say our team is not fully off book. So we do have some notes, we do have some details that we've got from our research. But if you have questions about Luminate, I'm also going to save those probably for the end, so I can also have Peter help me reference our notes that we have on that. All right, so unless you have not been in the supplier world, this has been, especially with Walmart, pretty earth-shattering. So Walmart did announce that Luminate is to replace DSS in 2024. The date that they've announced so far is March 1st, 2024. That's when DSS will be decommissioned. I understand that will be that suppliers will not have access to DSS through Retail Link. It will be gone, and you will only have the option to use Luminate. So we'll talk about the two versions of Luminate. We've got the unpaid version that is required. That's going to be Luminate Basic. There will be no other way to pull your data from Walmart. And then the optional paid service with Luminate Charter. And we'll talk a little bit about the differences, but I know most of the suppliers who are on here today have had these conversations with their team or with their merchant teams, etc. So just kind of share with us in the chat, what has your team done so far? Are you guys using Luminate? What's the experience so far? What roadblocks are you coming up against when it comes to Luminate? We want to be able to help because we have talked with some of our customers, reached into the pool of about 500 suppliers that we work with, as well as do some of our own research. So if there's something you want to talk about when it comes to Luminate, we'd love to have that conversation. So I'll move on, but if you do want to answer this question, if your team has started using Luminate, what's your experience like so far? Peter can interrupt me and we can kind of have that conversation. All right, so we've defined what DSS is, but what is Luminate? So I'll kind of read verbatim what Walmart says Luminate is. They refer to it as a suite of analytic tools that deliver actionable, customer-centric insights to drive better business decisions at Walmart. So more product-based. There's whole teams within Walmart that are attributed to just working on Luminate. And the part that I'll call out that we'll kind of refer to again is that customer-centric insights. So that's really what is the kicker with Luminate Charter. That paid version is a lot more customer data. So what Walmart has promised Luminate's going to be helpful for in the future is new product launches and line extensions, package redesigns, seasonal promotions, distribution or module changes that can also account for pickup and delivery. So it seems like it's going to have a breadth of information. It's supposed to be easier to use than DSS. So we'll kind of get into what those features look like now. So like I referenced in the beginning, we're still talking about DSS because it's still an option that you can use to pull data for your Walmart business. I'll pause here and just say, we have confirmed from Walmart, we have heard them say this in their trainings and in the content that's available for others to see, is that if you are pulling a report from DSS and you're pulling a report from Luminate, they probably won't be the same. Walmart has said that. So it's pulling information differently. They're not updating DSS to pull all of the accurate information, it sounds like. And your Walmart teams should be using Luminate as the source of truth. And that is coming from the mouth of Walmart. So I would say if something looks catastrophically off, maybe that's a point to kind of understand where the data is coming from. But if you're having conversations with your merchant team, use Luminate. That is the source of truth that Walmart is going to use. Thus, it should be the source of truth that we are using as suppliers when it comes to understanding what's going on in business. However, DSS is still helpful for understanding things because there are some features missing currently in Luminate. I would say comparing those, again, it's not for accuracy checks necessarily, but it can kind of be training for understanding, what the data is going to look like moving forward and learning how to reconcile those differences. All right, now we're going to get into an overview of Luminate Basic and Charter. So these are just screenshots from what Walmart has released. I'll kind of gloss over these quickly, but you can see you've got DSS, you've got the basic, which is the free version, and then the Charter paid version. And the things that I'll call out here is that DSS didn't really have enhanced e-commerce sales, and that's available in both basic and free. What you'll see in DSS is that there's not going to be information on OTIF, same with basic. You can pull that in your OTIF scorecard. You can also pull that through third-party applications like Pike, but that information seems like it will also be in Charter. I haven't physically seen with my eyes what that looks like in Charter. So if someone wants to call out if that's similar to the scorecard or if it's helpful, less helpful, let us know. Another key thing that we've heard a lot of suppliers talk about is PO data. So it's going to be available in the Nova app. It was available in DSS, and it's not going to be available in the basic version. I know that is a real frustration for a lot of suppliers, but I'll say you can pull that in Nova. And what we've heard from Walmart and their stance on that is not planned to be in basic. So you can go onto some of the Luminate help docs and understand what features they're thinking about launching or what they're planning on integrating in 2024 or in the near future. And from what we have seen, unless this has changed in the past couple of days, is PO data is not planned to be put into basic. So big call out and big change from going from DSS to Luminate. And then the new data sets that you'll see if you decide to go for the paid version is your online and pickup delivery, SQEP, which is already available in the SQEP dashboard, so you can access that, and then digital availability. And then we'll move on. There is more data, and some of these I really do want to call out, and we'll kind of reiterate these again, especially with report sharing. You cannot share reports. So in DSS, you've been able to share reports. You cannot do that in basic. That is why it is critical to write down or document your retail link recipes. We'll need to transition to saying Luminate recipes here because you cannot share a report. You can email or you can download one and then share it, but you won't be able to transition a template that's already in DSS to someone on your team. Another thing that I think is a helpful feature is email notification. There's a lot more features built around notifying you, having what is the word I'm looking for? The emails notifying and reports building automatically. There's more features on that in Basic, which is exciting. And then this is what I really want to focus on here. You've got bot access. There's not going to be bot access in Basic and Charter. Very key to understand. But I do want to go down here and really focus on this. From what I have heard for other suppliers, this insights is what makes the Charter exciting to them. There are other features, but this insights is going to be new from anything that you've seen in DSS. And it sounds like is more similar to some of your shopper marketing data, some of the things you may be pulling from other third-party information resources like IRI or Nielsen. It sounds like that's what it's going to look like. Again, I have not put my eyes on it specifically, but from the suppliers we've talked to, they're excited about some of these insights because you can actually understand what customers are, what their temperament is about new products, and you can really get a pulse on how they're selling through in short stores, where they are on the shelf, and just more metrics than we've seen, especially from the insights side for Walmart. All right, so this will be a kind of an overview. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. So these are DSS features not included in Luminate Basic. You've got your purchase orders. PO data will not be available, but it will be available in Nova. So you'll have to stitch that data together if that's something that you're looking for. Report sharing, like I said before, and bot access. So you'll get a copy of the slide deck, but I know the way that it is summarized and that list is a little bit confusing. Some of these slides are easier to just kind of digest what you're going to be losing or gaining versus DSS moving to Luminate. And the new features in Luminate Basic that were not in DSS, like I mentioned before, you've got enhanced e-com sales, and then just general omni-channel performance metrics, and then email notifications on report completion, and you can kind of schedule those out, and it's a little bit more fluid in the way that you can have those billed at specific times. So that is nice. You don't have to sit down on a Sunday night and run those. And then new features in Luminate Charter that were not available in DSS. I am excited for this. If your company is able to splurge for Charter, I have heard that Charter is quite pricey, but I know that there's going to be OTIF data in there. There will be PO data. I haven't heard that this is actually going to be in Charter so far, but so we'll just kind of nix this one from the line. Right now it'll be available in Nova, but I think it was slotted to be in Charter, and I think it's not anymore because I saw clarification that there is absolutely no PO data as of now, and they're not planning on that. So we'll update that slide for you guys. Net new data assets. So more information there, as well as data preview before report creation. So you can kind of see the first, I think, 50 lines of data. So you can check that before it's actually created and you've run that report. Report sharing in custom attributes and groups. So just having more flexibility between your teams. And then data feeds, APIs, as well as that insights, shopper behavior, and customer perception. And those are bolded because those are the ones that we've heard the most excitement from when it comes to suppliers. All right, so what's going to be lost in transition from DSS to Luminate? So in general, some suppliers, the ones that we have been able to speak to, fear that the flexibility of report building in DSS is not going to be translated to Luminate Basic. And what I'll say here is we have, gotten to kind of understand how Luminate Basic feels compared to DSS. And there is one feature that I feel like is helpful for transitioning. So in Luminate Basic, and I believe it's in Charter because if it's in Basic, it should be in Charter, is something called alias names. So you can actually search up old DSS names for things, and it will pull up the new Luminate name or the like trait or the like filter, whatever it is, in Luminate Basic. So that is a nice feature. And if it's not showing up under that alias name, then there is a database within the help docs that we can kind of link to and get you pointed to if you want that link. But essentially, that's going to help you understand as the report builder what types of attributes you should be using in your reports to get a similar recipe as one that you would find in DSS. So not to negate the huge adjustment that it will be, but Walmart is rolling out a lot of changes, and the advice that we've gotten from our best-in-class suppliers that we work with, from those who have been in the business that now work here at on our side at Supply Pike, is don't keep your head in the sand. There are so many changes that are coming in 2024. I think we've mentioned Supplier 1. There's going to be things on Aspen. There's a lot of new tools that are updating. I would say taking the time now to March to really understand Luminate and use DSS as the crutch to get you fully integrated into Luminate would be the best use of time, because you don't want to have DSS pulled away from you and then not understand how to use Luminate. So giving this as a trial period to kind of try this and get integrated into that software. All right, and then what's going to be gained? We talked a little bit about this, but there's going to be so much more performance visibility from what we understand, especially into omni-channel. So they've got specific features that kind of break that out, and .com. That was available in DSS, but it really was antiquated. And if you built reports in there, it did kind of require a little bit more knowledge to figure out exactly what you need to build those reports. So again, this is some more just, we've covered this, but Walmart does want to help suppliers have more detailed insights. So they are including that in Charter. And then some of those features that I've talked about is that you can actually pull customers. That's a part of the Charter feature to build out insights. So you don't have to use a separate third party for this. And these benefits are going to be restricted to Charter from what we understand at this point. All right, so I can ask this question to you all, but this is kind of what we've gathered from those that we've talked to. Is Charter worth the investment? So Luminate Charter, the paid version of Luminate. So what we understand from the pricing model is Luminate is based off of retail sales, not sales to Walmart. So that is understanding it's going to be a wider pool. And then some suppliers that we've talked to feel that the investment is essential to remain competitive, while others could be frustrated that the score is based off of retail sale. And we totally understand that. What I'll say here is it looks like larger companies are opting in for this, and some of our smaller companies on trend are working with Luminate Basic to see where they can get. Let us know if that's what you feel, if it feels like it's it makes sense to invest in that and it's going to give you that competitive edge, or if you feel like basic is working for you. You know, we want to make sure that people are learning from each other, especially when it comes to investing a lot of money that some suppliers may not have, especially in the business that we work in, learning a lot about preventing and disputing those rev loss charges. And last thing I'll say here, just I know that Charter has been pitched to a lot of suppliers, and you know, depending on the category or where you are in the category, if you're a category leader or if you're new, just making that decision for yourself and understanding the ROI for your specific business is key to knowing if Luminate is worth investing with all the other initiatives and things that we're looking down the barrel for in 2024. All right, so here's just a compilation of some of the best tips and strategies that we have so far on Luminate. So how do you pull reports in Luminate? First, I would say we're not off book on how to use Luminate. We're still learning, but we would love to help in any way we can. If there's something that you've run up against. My first recommendation, though, would be to go log into Luminate and go into their help docs. They have built that out really well. And I know that you can join trainings. They have webinars similar to these, but they're about 3 hours, I think. And they have the capacity for about, I think, 1,000 people. And you can join those and actually walk through with a customer success manager or something similar to that. And they'll show you how to build reports and understand some of the attributes and kind of work through the kinks of the Luminate system. So, like I said, in the left nav dropdown, similar to other products within the Walmart application space, Luminate does have a support tab, and it can show you how to pull those reports. So some of the most helpful reports they cover are the vendor scorecard, and then the data set overview and some sample reports. So we'll get into that now. So this is kind of what it looks like if you're starting. You can see the My Reports. This is for charter only. So if you have that, you can share those. You can build new reports. And then this is where you would pull down some of those help desk or customer supports. So we'll start in My Reports. You click Build New Report, pretty simple. And then you have to choose a data set to build these from, and you can kind of click in and they'll show you what those attributes are. You can also select reports. And this will be something that you've already built. So you would click vendor scorecard. And like I said, it'll pull up some of the data that's in use, some of the things that you're able to pull from. Those are the available filters. And what you can do from here is you can kind of drag, if you're building a new report, you can drag and drop and kind of put them into the rows or columns. Feels really similar to a pivot table, but it's a lot prettier, obviously. So that's really easy to use. Some of the notable filter levels are vendor, brand, category, item, and then they've got more granular details. What I will say here is you're not going to be able to filter PO data. Remember that, because there is no PO data that has been promised within the Luminate basic or charter at this point. And as you can see, we've got the vendor scorecard building. And then when you're building the report, this is kind of the page that you'll see. You need to name the report. You can write a description, that's optional. You're able to, usually this may be a little bit older. We've seen some of the newer screenshots from Illuminate, but you can either do Excel or CVS. What I understand for the report format is Excel has a specific limit. I want to say it's like 1 million rows or something like to that effect. So you can pull it as a CVS. And then you have different options to run once or run continuously, and you can schedule it. And there's a couple more features that are built out there. So a lot, I think, easier to use than DSS in general. But again, I'll let you guys be the judge in terms of, familiarity with DSS may feel a little bit easier at this point. All right. And so what are the differences between vendor scorecard and Luminate DSS? For the most part, these reports are the same. They feel very similar. The notable difference we want to call out is the addition of POS quantity data in Luminate. So that's something that you can pull in, kind of build. We can show you that recipe if that's helpful, but we also have that in DSS. We can show you how to build that as well. All right. So the chat has been quiet. So I'm going to challenge you guys to, kind of engage in some conversation. What have been the biggest challenges for you and your business when adapting to a new platform? Is there something that you've learned that you'd want to share with other suppliers that, you hit your head against your computer for a couple hours and then you had a breakthrough? Or is there something that you're still wondering about, that you still have questions about? We'd love to answer those. So I don't see any in the chat, but I will move on. If people want to talk about this, we'd love to. All right. So let's get into completing some report templates, the example report template, and discuss some different tabs. So you're going to feel the transition here. This is DSS. We're done talking about Luminate. We can go back to talking about Luminate if you want. But again, like we said in the beginning, DSS is still alive until March 1st, 2024. So you can build these pages if you're still needing this data and you still want to use the system that has been in place for, gosh, I think DSS has been around for like 20 plus years. So this is what DSS looks like. If we're doing comparison, Luminate does look a little bit prettier, I will say, but there's a couple different things I want to call out here on DSS. You'll notice a couple different drop-down menus and several folders. These selections are going to allow you to drill down into specific country and report type that you'd like to create. So pretty still similar to how you work with with Luminate, DSS does have a lot of filtering that it takes you down before you start building that report. All right, and then when it comes to creating report templates in DSS, you need to, it's relatively easy. That's what they're called. A report query is a report template. These templates help the user in building what is essential to a database query. And fortunately, you don't need any database experience. You're not like an RStudio or anything that's overwhelming. You can go ahead and just create some powerful queries within DSS report templates. So as you can see, there's several folders containing multiple report templates. Again, calling this out because we are transitioning DSS to Luminate. If you have a bunch of reports in here, or you have someone who's been at your company for a while and they are the report wizard, I would start learning these recipes and learning how to convert them into Luminate. That would be like the number one priority, especially as we have a little bit of time off here or the office isn't as busy, transitioning these, because there are a lot of valuable reports that have built in here. And you will have some of that kind of laid out for you in some of the help docs or within DSS. But I know from the suppliers that I've gotten to talk to specifically, there are gold mines in these templates, and you can share them at this point in DSS. So another great call out. You can share them now and build them in Luminate later. All right, so let's talk about the anatomy of a DSS query. So it's not anything more than a structured business question, and you're just implementing that into the system, and DSS will pull that for you. So the first thing is starting with a specific business question. The example that we have here is, what are the sales for my items by store by item for the last 13 weeks? And then second is choosing the correct template. So there are lots of different report templates, and it can be a little bit jarring, but choosing the right one is vital to making sure that you're pulling the information in a way that is helpful and applicable when you're downloading that and then manipulating it later. And then last is completing the report template. So templates are divided into a number of tabs dependent on the data that you're needing, and the process to build any DSS query report is the same. So once you learn one or two and feel really confident, the sky's the limit. You can build a lot of them. Another thing I'll say here, it's kind of a tangent off of what I've said before. You may have existing templates that feel that you want to transition into Luminate. What I will say is, if you are more comfortable building something in DSS, go ahead and build it there, and then see how you can apply that to Luminate, and that may help when it comes to just practicing how to build those in Luminate as well. All right, and then some more of just the structure. You've got our report columns and the columns tab. So all the selections that you make on this tab will be represented as columns of data in the resulting Excel report. So you want to make sure you're making really clean data sets and you're not having to reconfigure things when you're exporting them. And there are dozens of report columns available to choose from. So just explore the options as you're creating them. And, maybe you're building one really large just to kind of see and understand the data, but then you can kind of pare those columns down as you're going on. All right, and then there's the items tab. So similar to kind of what we were talking about before with the columns tab, this is going to help define the pool of data for the report by item. So for example, you can create a sales report that shows sales for all the items under your 6-digit vendor number, or for some of your items or a specific department. Peter, I'm going to call on you because I'm blanking on this, but this is a question I know suppliers have asked a lot. When it comes to Luminate, can you pull by 6-digit or 9-digit vendor number?
Yeah, so something that is a source of frustration for some, or has been for some so far, is that you can only pull reports by the 6-digit number, but you can get the same effect of pulling by the 9-digit number by filtering by department. So that's how that's changing in Luminate. So it will be just the 6-digit number. You can't use the 9-digit number. But whenever you're pulling 6-digit number reports, you have to just then filter by the category. in order to get that info.
Perfect. Okay. So just to reiterate, that's you can pull by both. You just kind of have to back into the 9-digit number. But that in DSS, you can still pull by that. But with Luminate, you do kind of have to back into it. So wanted to call that out. All right, and then we've got our locations tab. This offers the ability to further define the scope of your inquiry by location. This can be helpful if you're interested in seeing a subset of stores, one store, stores within a certain state, or just including all of them in your analysis. And how I understand this moving forward with Luminate is that you'll still have the capabilities to do that. All right, giving myself a quick time check. We're still good. And then you've got your times tab. So makes sense, feels very similar to a pivot table. This is really just building these out further with the queries that we've got available in DSS. Times tab allows the user to define the time range. There's, I think, the ability to select up to 6 different comparative time ranges. And a couple of these time ranges are changing in Luminate. If anyone has a specific question about that, we can talk about it. I will say the term fuzzy dates, I know, is going away. I think there's a way you can back into it, but if that's something that you use often, I would spend some time researching how it makes sense for your business to define that time range, or how it's defined for users in Illuminate. And then once you've kind of chosen your location, your times, your item, you have the submit tab. And this is where you, similar to Luminate, you're going to name the report, run it, save it, and you can schedule that query. You can choose the delivery method of the report. I believe that in Luminate, yes, this is correct. In Luminate, you actually can't email the report to yourself. What Walmart has said on this is that it notifies you that it is ready, and then you go and download it in Luminate. So I wanted to call that out. Another thing with Luminate versus DSS is they, I think, run on different times. So there's different updates for different reports. So I would call that out too. If your team is expecting it on a specific day, ensure that it is transitioning on Luminate as well. Not to miss this tip, because it works for both DSS and Luminate, because it's just on scheduling. Make sure that if you need a report Monday morning, schedule it on Sunday to run so it is ready for you. Unless the data is updating Monday morning, then it just makes sense to run it on Sunday. So think critically about when you're scheduling these reports to run. From what I understand, DSS can take a little bit of time. We won't talk about it. It's been known to take a little bit longer. Sounds like Luminate will take much less time. Fingers crossed, right? But give yourself ample time to have that report run in case there are any troubleshooting issues. I know some of the users that I have talked to with Luminate have said that there are some troubleshooting issues, but the team is pretty good at getting on it and then fixing those issues for Luminate. All right, and then just some extra things in here. We've got the checking the report status. So submitted reports can be seen in the requests panel, so you can go in there. And then reports with the done status will have the download icon, which can allow you to retrieve those. Okay, so now we're to kind of our last section, some of the popular DSS report templates. Something that we're working on is making sure that we have the accurate information to get these reports transitioned to Luminate. So we're working on a couple of those, but I know you guys, if you've built these before and you have Luminate, you can go in and compare the alias names and start building those for yourself. So we'll kind of look into that. The first being the company summary report. So what does that tell you? You can actually drill down into an item level on performance metrics and see each item's contribution to the global numbers. This should be the minimum level of visibility that you consider when performing any analysis. And this is really just a nice temperature check when it comes to understanding how your items are doing. So here is that report in DSS. I think the one that we called out earlier is PSO quantity. I think that's the one that is changing in Luminate. Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If not, just I'll keep talking. And then fuzzy dates is one that I will say Illuminate that is changing. So this is a helpful thing. You can see the report columns. You've got lots of different columns that you're pulling through. So it's giving you information on quantity, on sales, gross shipping, current on hand, which is very key to understanding what inventory is available or where you need to replenish, current in transit quantity, warehouse, on order, current traded store count and replenishment store, and then replenishment in stock metrics. So that percentage. So helpful stuff here. If there's any questions, I'm gonna move on. So here's a sample of what that data would look like. If you pulled that data and you're looking at it in Excel, this is how it would look. You would see your item number, the description, your quantity, all of the columns that we talked about before. And since we selected prime, item number, and item description, this instructed DSS to display performance metrics by item rather than rolled up into a corporate level. So hopefully that is helpful. All right, another report that is key that we've heard a lot, that a lot of suppliers use is just the store detailer report. And this is going to help you drill down into store level metrics. We are fast approaching Christmas. So this is really helpful to see as we're entering and leaving that key holiday season and going into end of year with Walmart, and then showing each store's contribution to those item numbers. Store level analysis is typically done when an issue is identified at an item level and then needs further investigation. So just kind of understanding where is this item having issues? Are we not understanding the replenishment cadence? Is it getting caught up in specific codes? Do we know that this item has received a lot of shortage issues? Is it back to the DC? So this is going to really help you start to diagnose different issues. All right, and then here is the retail link recipe as promised. Again, you're going to see a lot of the same metrics within here. Like I said before, but I'm going to keep repeating myself because I know this Luminate content, it takes a lot to digest. You can search, like, let's say we want to search net ship quantity, and that is the alias in Luminate. So the alias meaning it was what we called it in DSS, but to clarify or make the data cleaner or just changing it on the whim of Walmart, it has a different name, but you can still search by DSS name under alias name. And we did see one supplier who did ask about if that alias name was going to leave. And it was really helpful to understand that that the alias names are not leaving. They're going to be a feature within Luminate. So you still, if you're very DSS minded, you can still search by your alias name there. So you'll see the report columns pretty similar to before, but we're pulling a couple more metrics that are focused on that store details, like your store number, city, state, zip code, etc. And then item number, as well as time range, and then the stores. This is going to be without .com within DSS, but you will be able to pull more enhanced in Luminate, that .com metrics. So that's another helpful thing if you're building this, to consider including columns that help you understand how it's performing at the omni-channel level. So here's a little bit, a couple rows and columns of what the report would look like. So you could see your item number and description, the store number, city, so you can kind of understand the details going on here. So the quantity, you've got your sales, gross ship quantity, and just understanding that at your store level. So as the slide says, the Excel report shows each individual store's contribution to the total performance. So you can really understand that top and bottom stores by sales, store inventory and pipeline, maybe identify a couple DCs that are having issues, and then in stock percentage by store. And then just to call out, if you're not familiar with this metric, at the store level, an in-stock percentage is either 0 or 100. So they either have it or they don't. So you want to keep it at 100, and you don't obviously want to get to 0. Makes sense. All right, and then the last one that we have here before we'll transition into Q&A is the Supplier Performance Scorecard. And this is a document commonly used by Walmart buyers, Walmart replenishment managers to assess the overall performance of a supplier's account based on a couple different KPIs. That being volume measures first. So sales to customer, they want to know how much of your items are actually being sold. The second being profitability measures, and that's going to be how many dollars in gross margin did Walmart make when the consumer purchased the product? So is it working for them? Are they getting enough sales and volumes as well as that dollar amount? And then the last being asset efficiency measures. So how efficiently is Walmart handling their assets, your inventory? Walmart can see how long that they've owned that inventory before selling it, and that can kind of help them determine the different features and how they sell in or take on new product. All right, and then the retail link recipe is it's actually a preset report, so you don't have control over the resulting Excel report, and the items tab is the only one that needs to have selections made. So here is that mammoth of a report. You can see the time period is by last week, month, year, and then you can see quarters. And then you can pull by all of these different data. So this is really helpful to pull this, use this data set, and then pull out the information you need and analyze that. Because obviously just looking at this, it is overwhelming, and there's a lot that you can learn here if you're able and willing to drill down into this. And this is going to be the template that your merchant team is using and understanding, and referring to this is going to be speaking their language, which we all want to do. We want to speak our merchant team's language, right? And then this is just additional details on that report. And these are, again, different levels of this. It's the preset report. I'm not 100% sure. I believe that is in Luminate under vendor scorecard. I think that's what it's called. But I would compare and contrast those and see if you need to build another report to supplement what they have in that template already. All right, perfect. We got to the end of this actually exactly on time. So Peter, what questions do you have for me?
We've only got one formal question. We had a few call outs in the chat I wanted to just draw everyone's attention to. The first being Scott mentioned the 4-hour training webinar from Luminate. It is available on demand in the Luminate help menu, as are a bunch of other articles and other kind of help documents that are really helpful. So definitely, if you're using DSS a lot and you're going to be moving over to Luminate, highly recommend going and watching that training, as well as reading as much as you can on it, because some of the differences are pretty subtle. Walmart has some different kinds of points of emphasis that they really wanted to kind of get across. So reading up as much as possible would be great to do there. And then we had one question in the Q&A about fuzzy dates. What are the fuzzy dates and what are they used for?
Yeah, so fuzzy dates kind of help us. We think of dates as, you've got your Sunday to Saturday, right? That's how we determine weeks oftentimes. What I would say is it's referring to specific weeks, so corresponding to the Walmart week number. And I believe, and I'm trying to think, someone correct me if I'm wrong, it is Saturday to Friday. I believe that's correct. So Saturday, you've got your Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And that's that fuzzy week based on the way that they pull in data and based on those Walmart weeks. So they're really used for kind of understanding within those fiscal weeks that Walmart lines out, and it just making sure that everything's matching up. But from what I understand, again, fuzzy weeks will have a different name in Luminate, and you can back into them. It's just not readily apparent, whereas fuzzy dates were actually a metric that you could pull in DSS. Peter, is there anything else on fuzzy dates that I'm missing? I feel like there was something key with Luminate that I wanted to mention on fuzzy dates, but again, I don't have my notes in front of me.
No, I can't remember anything particularly about fuzzy dates, about the changes that are going on there for Luminate. But yeah, just that fuzzy dates seem to be more kind of like regular language that we use when we're talking about dates, like last week or last month or something like that. Whereas the Walmart dates are the Walmart kind of like weeks. That's my understanding of the difference. But yeah, if anyone else wants to kind of speak to that.
I pulled my notes up here, Peter, and it looks like we did ask about fuzzy dates if they're available in Luminate, and it looks like not now. And then I also have something that came from someone in Walmart on the Luminate team and said that fuzzy dates are not going to be available in basic. So again, I would say let's dive more on that. Let's add that to the list of things I just want to clarify. And again, like Peter said, if you have information on that, we want to make sure that we're documenting the most up to date and clearest, because there's something coming out almost every day with Luminate. So
yep. And there's stuff that's kind of a work in progress still with Luminate, and then there's other stuff that we know is only available through Charter. Originally, Walmart, we sent the screenshots. I think they're in this presentation of the differences between Charter and Basic, but there's a lot more than that. So on a more granular level, like that's something that we need to kind of get down in documentation for everyone to know about when considering Charter. So that's a great call out there.
yes.
But that's it for the questions from us. I don't know if you want to put our emails up there just in case anyone wants to get those down real quick for any other questions. These are some other resources that we have. I think these are all Walmart based, but we have other things in other major retailers too, like Amazon, Target, as well on our website. But yeah, whatever it is you feel like you need to kind of cover in your own kind of reading, or maybe something that you want to download and distribute to your team. Our cheat sheets, you can see the one on the far right there is Walmart's shipping and routing transportation guide. That's one example of one of the cheat sheets we have, but we have a lot of those that are designed basically just be downloaded and then distributed to your team as a way of saving these. Melissa asked in the chat if these are linked on our site. They absolutely are. If you just Google Supplier Wiki, will be the first thing that shows up. And then you can go to the resources tab. I believe it's still called resources. But you can, in the top nav, if you look for
Peter, you can share some of these resources. So yeah, we can share the links to those while we're getting them. So we'll drop them in the chat for you guys as well.
Yes. And then on the next slide, we have our emails there. So you can write those down if you would like, if you have any kind of lingering questions, or if you are going to go into Luminate now and poke around and you want to save those for later, just in case there will be any, or in case you think that you might have any questions for us that you'd like to send a little bit later, we can do that as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Peter, for giving us those questions and walking us through that. I know you can send those resources in the chat. What we're going to do now is, first, thank you guys for joining for today's content. Thank you for joining for the last webinar of 2023. Feels kind of surreal that we're here, but we're actually going to transition into a quick product preview of Supply Pike for Walmart. So I will kind of exit my screen here and get into that. But if this is where you jump off, again, we want to be education first and then, show you our product second. So if this is where you leave us, we hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and we're going to transition here into our application. So I think you can still see my screen, just checking. Yep. We always have to do that. And we'll kick off our quick product preview. All right, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick, and I want to preface that if this is something that you're interested in looking at, this is something, the application that we can walk through on a deeper level. We are really just going to skirt the surface of the applications that we have at Supply Pike for revenue loss. So the first thing I want to call out is we're going to be talking about Walmart deductions specifically, but we have features on overages, on OTIF, and SQEP, your compliance programs. We have we've gone deep into the retailers of Amazon, Target, Kroger, and there's just a lot of benefits and features that we don't have time to cover. So I'm going to go through this really quick. First being, this is the rev loss summary page. I love this page because it is just all the fun dashboardy things that are really helpful that you don't have to pull. And if you don't want to spend more time pulling data from some of the other applications in Retail Link that we didn't talk about today, like APDP, like APIS, like the accounting scorecard, this is the tool for you. So you can kind of see rev loss by dollar across your Walmart business, the gross revenue, the net AP deductions, net compliance fines, and then the total of what you're missing, and kind of see that across the years or the months within the year. And you can see, just the different breakouts and the trend lines there, and understand that at a higher level. And I'll kind of scroll through this. You guys can understand like the different features in the dashboard, but this is really helpful from what we've seen for analysts who want to understand at a high level and report that back to a higher level, like a director or VP. This is helpful for your VPs just to go in, understand, so you're not pulling reports to give this high level view. They can access it in seconds and understand what's going on within the business. You can see it by category. So you've got that OSD, so some of those shortages and different things, and understand the gross and net rev loss. Can go into category mapping, so we won't spend much time on that. And then see it by status of like what has not been disputed, what you won't dispute because you've just decided to write that off or it's valid, what's been pending, so what's in Walmart's queue, what's approved, so the dollars that you've won back, and denied as well. So you can see those by total. One thing I'll call out here as I'm switching over to the deductions page, where we'll spend the rest of our time, is that this data is our dummy data, but we pull in Retail Link data from a couple different places. So you're not having to toggle between 7 different Retail Link applications, plus now Luminate. So you'll have access to your data without having to pull it, as well as it's fresh data. It's pulled in every night and updated. So here's kind of this dashboard look. You've got your deductions management health. You can kind of just see, again, these are very similar to the summary. They give you that high level details that are tailored to answer those questions that, your boss may be asking you, or your boss's boss may be asking. And then it's built to make sure that you understand exactly what's going on. So you can hover over these icons, understand when that was updated and what that metric actually means. One thing I'll say here is, again, this is going to feel similar to that summary dashboard, but you can actually see these breakdowns, and this is going to help point to some of the more actionable things. So that summary is even a higher level view of your rev loss. This is more of the tactical insights that you can start applying when you're going in to actually dispute your deductions. So again, more dashboardy things. You can see that deductions breakdown, and then see that in a visual chart. What I love about this application especially is this piece right here, seeing what count and amount is by each claim code. This is really helpful and strategic when it's coming to building your strategy with going after your different rev loss. Depending on the needs of your business, you could go after by the highest amounts. You could focus on those code 25s, or you could focus on the count and go after those code 57s. So there's, lots of ways that you can kind of slice and dice this really quickly without having to pull anything. We've also got deductions over time and claim line filters by numbers. And then we kind of talked about this when understanding your DCs. So within DSS and Luminate, you can kind of see some of this data, or by store number rather. And this is helpful to just kind of understand who is accruing the most fines. So maybe this is where you start to kind of troubleshoot what's going on at specific DCs. All right. And I said this was going to be quick, so we're going to switch over from this dashboard page to the deduction page. And this is the bread and butter. This is the exciting part, because this is where you can mitigate having to go into Retail Link to dispute, and you can actually dispute within this application. You can do that in a couple of different ways. There's lots of filters available for how you want to slice and dice your data, but let's say we're focusing on shortages and we want to go into this code here, this code 22, and we want to look at all the data. So you'll see a couple different things. You can see the claim number, the details of the code, where it's coming from, dig into even more of this information, the PO number, check number, shipping method. And this is the part I get really excited about, and I see suppliers' eyes light up when it comes to this, is all of this documentation. This is something that you can upload if you want, but all of these that are available here were pre-uploaded. They were automated to be uploaded, and you can actually view them and have them checked. And you can see some of the business logic that is baked in, especially in this section, where this is recommended to upload for your dispute. You can see that across those documents. And then you also have that logic that's built in saying, you don't even have to think about this if you don't want. This is meeting all the criteria that's necessary to dispute. You can just click that submit dispute. So really exciting. That's really quick, and you can just review that very easily. Another thing, another way you can dispute is just clicking that and then seeing that you have 25 deductions selected. And let's say you just want to dispute those because all of those are not disputed. They're in the actionable tab, submit dispute, and we would have disputed 25 deductions. You can also filter that by just readiness. So you can say, I want them to be, we know for sure they're invalid, and we would dispute those. Again, I'm filtering, I know it says 0, but this is just with our dummy data. Last thing I'll show you before we sign off for today is our auto disputing. So if you just want to take your hands off the wheel and enable auto disputing, you can do that. And you can do that by choosing what you want to auto dispute. So you could choose, for code 14s, I want to auto dispute those, and I want them to be invalid for sure, or likely invalid if you want to kind of widen that scope. So you can kind of set it and forget it. You can also play with the deduction amount and really customize it. So you're going after the things that may require more of that human touch, but the things that are really just rote memorization or easy to dispute back, you're not having to touch those at all. So really exciting. And we've only scratched the surface. So if you are interested in hearing more about this, I would recommend going to supplypike.com, which we've got here, or email us, Peter or myself. These are our real emails. So we'd love to hear from you guys. If you have questions about Luminate, DSS, or a product, we want to be able to help you guys. So with that, Peter, if there are no questions, what I'll go ahead and do is sign off on our last webinar of 2023. And thank you guys all for joining.